Hello, welcome to my new video where I want to sort of talk about the immortality of and timelessness of stories versus non-fiction. And while I illustrate Don Quixote illustrations, which I based on illustrations from Gustave Doré. And my hope is that you will draw with me. So grab a sketchbook and I'll just talk from the top of my head about storytelling as I do these illustrations. So I hope you'll join me. Stories. So I have a master's degree in physics, and what the interesting thing was about that always was let me check that everything is recording. Yep, everything is recording. I'd already recorded this one time, but apparently I forgot to press record on the camera, so there's only audio. And I think this adds where I've noticed in another video where you could see the face, and for some reason you have more of a feeling that you're with the artist, and I think that could help with this, because I like to listen to artists when they draw and when they talk on their YouTube video. So I'm hoping that this can serve the same purpose, that you sort of listen to me while I blabber on about storytelling, and maybe you can draw with me. So, okay, storytelling. So I studied physics, and as a scientist, you're hoping to sort of write articles, scientific journal articles, that stand the test of time. Basically, you're trying to make yourself immortal. Of course, you want to outlive. You want something to outlive you. You want to make something that outlives you. On a side note, children are that. If you want to become immortal, then you should have children, because children are your immortality. That's one. Maybe that's one way. That's one reason why we want to become immortal. But anyway, so was a few years back. I wanted to experiment and try serializing stories online. I wanted to experiment with it, and so I decided to pick an existing story, Don Quixote, which is public domain. So, and I read the story, and it's a brilliant story. It really is something you can still read today. Talking about immortality and timelessness, it's a story about a man who has read one too many what they called books of chivalry. Basically, those were books where knights fought against monsters and against giants, etc., and did heroic deeds, all to impress a lady they wanted to marry. So it was really an ideal of how men should behave. That was depicted in those books, and those books were bestsellers back then. And Cervantes, when they thought, well, but that's not how we behave, right? That's not normal. So he decided to make Don Quixote, who read one of these books. He read them too many of them, and he decided one day to become a knight, to chivalry knight. He decided on a girl from another village that he decided to fall in love with, and he decided to become a knight. So he went on adventures. And well, I mean, he thought he was going on an adventure, but all the people around, you can see that they thought he was an idiot. So basically, it's still hilarious. It's a sort of a parody on those books of chivalry, and we can still read it because it's still funny. It's slapstick humor, and but it has a lot of realism in it. The people that you see that are in the book, he based them on real people in real life. So there's a level of realism there, but also it's a timeless comment on because we still have it. We have superhero comics, and those also depict heroic deeds in sort of an aspirational way. Like, look, we want to be like that, right? So that happens in nowadays still with superhero comics. So it is a timeless comment, and it's something that we can still read 400 years after it was written. Whereas I read some of these essays from the 19th century, and these are really not easy to read. There's some, they really clearly had different morals and ethics. And I read, there was this one where they described how you should treat models as an artist, and I don't think you could publish something like that nowadays. It was really wrong. It was really a horrible way of treating models, and apparently that was okay back then. And so so non-fiction tends to also be associated with the morals of the time, and whereas non-fiction, I mean, whereas fiction can be really about our times, and it can be have been written hundreds of years ago and still ring true. And it's because humans, of course, don't change. It's fiction. Fiction has a deeper truth, maybe. It says something about the nature of human beings, or about how we behave. And that, of course, doesn't change. I mean, the people who lived 400 years ago are still the same as the people who live now. We behave in similar ways. And because story also has an important function. It can be a simulation of life if used properly. I mean, back when we were cavemen, we would sit around a campfire, and one person would say, "Today, I met a bear and I fought a bear." And maybe everybody around the campfire sits up and listens. Oh, I want to listen because I want to know how to defeat a bear. So everybody listens, and you go through that experience vicariously. You live the same experience, but through a simulation, basically. Story is a simulation of life in that case. So that makes it very valuable to sort of share life's experiences. That's one thing we do a lot. If you're sitting somewhere with a friend and having a drink, you tell stories about what happened last week, etc. And those are those types of stories. You share something that happened to you, and you share how you responded to it, and you share what happened after that. So that's a way of simulating life. The funny thing about Don Quixote is that everybody remembers the tilting at the windmills. Everybody remembers that fighting something that's bigger than you and losing because you can not possibly win. Don Quixote is fighting tilting windmills, and that is in itself also a timeless metaphor. We still use it, but actually Cervantes meant it in a different way. Meant it sort of to parody the books of chivalry of his time. There's another thing stories are good at. I read the book Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, and he had an interesting insight. He said, well, we discovered storytelling, we invented storytelling maybe 70,000 years ago, and what we did with that is we created mythologies. I guess, I mean, you can probably religion was that. I mean, you tell stories, and basically it's stories about common things that you believe in. And what that did was, the Neanderthals were stronger than the humans, physically stronger, but they were always with few. And humans could share a mythology and believe in it. And what happens in that case is that you trust each other. You can now see nowadays, you have these large worldwide groups where people believe in the same mythology, and you have millions of people rallying around a cause because they believe in the same thing. And that's the power of story, where you have a mythology and millions of people getting behind it. And that probably also happened with Neanderthals. There were few, and the humans could sort of organize in the thousands and rally behind a shared mythology. So storytelling might actually be one of the most powerful technologies we ever invented. It's probably why we dominate the animal world, why we're stronger than any other animal. We can sort of band together and work together. And I'm trying something new. I practice drawing. This has a drawing exercise on the website. What was I recently started brainstorming new exercises, and I came up with so many that I decided, well, actually my newsletter, which you can subscribe to, I can send a completely new drawing exercise every week easily. I mean, I can think of many cool drawing exercises, and but I was also thinking that maybe I can do a drawing exercise for each video that you may be able to do after this video. So for this video, maybe what you can do after you subscribe to my newsletter is find a public domain story like Don Quixote, but maybe another one, one of the older ones that really resonates with you. And then and the cool thing about doing that is that you can use the text because it's public domain. So you can publish it with a blog or etc. You can publish part of the text, but that's not the main reason. Try to sort of maybe there are illustrations already with it, so that then you can study it. You can study these illustrations and copy them, because back then they also made very, very different compositions. It's really weird, but nowadays, because of cinema, everything is always framed. People compose a storytelling image, frame things, whereas back then, like you can see in this illustration, you can see two people, you can see them head to toe basically, you can see the entire thing. And that's what they did a lot when they depicted the scene. You would see the whole person from head to toe in some setting, and it's a very different way of composing. But it's you learn a lot about how clothes fold and posing, and it's you can learn a lot from it, and it's fun to do. And what you can also do is try to come up with your own illustrations as a drawing exercise, for example. So I'll just keep on drawing here for now. And thank you for watching this video again. I hope you'll consider subscribing to my newsletter, where I'm going to now send a novel, original, new drawing exercise every Sunday. But you will probably see them here also, so you can subscribe here also. So thank you for watching, and I'll keep on drawing from here.